Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, we have now turned the calendar to the month of June. The season is getting much, much, much closer, even as we speak, which means that today it is time to tackle the important questions as part of our June Q&A episode. My friend, welcome back. How are you?
Can't wait. I'm good. The sun is shining. Had a good weekend. Plenty of sports sidelines for kids playing t-ball, coach pitch baseball. You pick it. Life is good, Ty. Life is good. How about you?
I am doing wonderful. I played a terrible round of golf and my elbow is ailing.
Inside or outside?
Kind of in the back part.
Oh,
there.
on the back of the bone on the outside?
The internet has no answer for what that is.
Oh my God. You injured yourself in a mysterious way that the internet, full of horrible golfers who constantly do bodily harm to themselves in their golf game, you have exceeded their knowledge base.
It would appear as if
Great
that
job.
is the case. Yeah, that is
Awesome.
the case.
Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Nonetheless, hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of our episodes. If you want to continue to support what Dan and I do, you can always do so by getting ad-free episodes and bonus content and Discord access and access to the games that we're going to have coming up here once the season gets closer out at verballers.com, VERBALLERS.com. Let's jump right in.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
You've got mail on the Solid Verbal.
Did you add the new sounds that I sent you to your soundboard?
I actually did.
Can I hear?
I actually did, and we will use them when the time is right. I do not want
Gratuitous. Okay.
to sully the good name of this episode.
Yeah.
Let's start with this one from Ween out on Patreon.
Okay.
If a wizard approached you, Dan Rubenstein, and said, tonight you will forget everything you know about the teams that you love, and those memories will be replaced by a lifetime of experiences of being a fan of a completely different team, but you must choose now.
Mm-hmm.
Which team would you pick, Dan?
So in my lifetime.
Yeah,
So-
in your lifetime. All of those wonderful Oregon memories. Before that, I guess Florida State for you.
Okay.
All of your college football memories of a specific team, your favorite team, those are going to be hot swapped
Yeah.
with those of another team.
So let's say since 2000. Somewhere in there. Does that make sense?
I mean, that would only be half of your lifetime, but sure, if you want to
No,
start
I know,
at
but
2000.
so okay, you can do lifetime. There's just so many different eras to sort of weigh. So if I had to swap memories, I think it would be lame to say Alabama, right? That would be lame. That would be a dork's answer to say Alabama or Ohio State. I don't know. That doesn't. I'm looking for strictly a fun experience. So you have to experience some lows, so the highs feel a little bit sweeter. There has to be a fun element to this. If I'm going to pick a specific memory implant, I want to implant fun memories that
Sure.
there are upsets involved. Maybe style of play is interesting to watch over the years. I'm not going to choose a national championship team, I don't think.
Well, so there's two strategies to this, right?
Yeah.
If the wizard is going to wipe out all of my Notre Dame stuff
Yeah.
and replace it with the team of my choosing,
Yeah.
I either want to pick a team that is currently good so that I hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Georgia, a team that is very much in the zeitgeist.
Yes.
Or the other avenue, maybe this is the one you prefer, pick a team that used to be good, or just pick a team that has a lot of great memories. Like I was thinking Stanford. Stanford, not currently good, but Stanford
those are some lows, man.
Stanford had an incredible run with Christian McCaffrey when Jim Harbaugh was there, Andrew Luck, right? So there are two different ways that you could approach this.
I don't think there's enough juice around Stanford football to say I'm implanting my brain. Like, okay, so if I were to choose a national championship program, which I don't think I should, I might choose LSU. I think there are enough highs, enough entertainment around the program, enough players that are so rootable that you would just enjoy your time being on that side of the action over the years. Obviously, you're going back, you're getting Les Miles, you're getting Coach O, you're getting Nick Saban, you're getting some low points in the 90s, you're getting some low points here and there, coming down off of some high points. but I think entertainment factor among the elite teams, without saying Ohio State, without saying Alabama, whatever that next tier is, that makes sense to me. If I'm going to select a team that's just not a national championship team, that's quality, that cares, that plays in big games, that plays an entertaining brand of football, that has had upsets, I think you might be able to do worse than Ole Miss.
Ooh, okay.
That's not bad.
That's good. No, that's not bad. I thought you were going to take mine.
Which was?
Mine is Boise State.
Boise State hasn't won a national championship, has had fun, has had quality. The frustration about, like, the ceiling involved with being a Boise State fan.
For sure. But, you know, I believe it is you, my trusty co-host, who has argued for an eternity on this show that the national championship is not necessarily the point.
No, I know, but you're talking about access, right? It's a different argument when you're saying, like, we don't even have access when we are going 11-1, 12-0. It's not the point as a national fan to me, but I understand the frustrations of Boise people in the 2000s.
I mean, I can only imagine the unbelievable high that came with that Fiesta Bowl win over Oklahoma back in the day.
Sure.
Right. So to have that in my memory bank would definitely make me at least 5% more joyful of a human being and a college football fan. And also, to some extent, being unburdened for a long time from that national championship conversation. I understand there might be some frustration that comes with it, but to not necessarily start the season wondering if that's going to happen, that would definitely cut stress out of my life, out of my memory bank. And also being able to watch this slow build of Boise State through the 90s up to present day, you know, that has definitely been, I think, the journey of a lifetime for Boise State fans, watching this program rise to prominence, most recently now being in the college football playoff, having great players move through there, sort of being this upstart program, this team that can upset you if you're not paying attention, while at the same time now obviously being more of a national story. So I just think that evolution would have been fun to watch. If I could swap out some of the painful Notre Dame losses to like MAC teams, right, and maybe swap in just this perennial underdog, I don't think that's a bad trade to made if the Wizard presents himself to me and gives this unholy choice to me. I
would have a conversation about either of the Arizona schools, because that means I probably lived in warm weather, had access to better Mexican food than I've always had.
This isn't a life thing. This is just a memories thing related to a football team.
Here's why I say Arizona schools. You're generally getting quality with some definitive low points. Some of the Herm Edwards years, some of the Kevin Sumlin years.
Some of those Kevin Sumlin years, man. I don't know about that.
You're competing for conference championships. There's pretty consistent quality, even if you're losing, even if you're sort of the Washington Generals to, the better Stanford, Oregon, USC teams throughout the years in the Pac-12. Now you're moving on to the Big 12. So there's a little bit of novelty involved with being a fan of one of those schools. But at the same time, you're not expecting 11 wins a year. Like, you get to live in a reality that it's probably more healthy.
Sure.
And you appreciate the finer things when they arrive.
See, that's my Boise argument right there.
Well, Boise's highs have been higher, to me, more consistently. But the down part of Boise is you have to ride through the Andy Avalos and Brian Harsin years, which are not always the most fun.
There's no perfect answer.
There's no perfect answer.
I would love to hear from people on this one. This is a fabulous question from Ween, by the way, one of our trusty verballers. If you have something, if you're not on the Patreon, you want to write in solidverbal@gmail.com.
Or you can take the tact of take a more downtrodden program, be a Vandy fan, be a Purdue fan, be a Rutgers fan, because you expect nothing and you get to be surprised by competence. And so you protect yourself against the pain, Ty. No. You're like, I'm a Vandy fan. We're going to lose, but if we don't, holy moly, we're going to throw some stuff into a river. I don't know. There's something to be said about protecting from the pain, but I don't think you can live your life like that, right? You got to love like nobody's watching, Ty. That's what your tattoo says. That's a core belief of mine. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my answer.
Let's go to this question from Efren.
Okay.
I understand that the Big Ten has Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
Yes, they
But
do.
that leaves 14 teams. Are those 14 teams so vastly superior to the Big 12? I feel like there's not a lot of difference between the Minnesotas and Illinois and teams like K-State and Baylor. However, people keep on talking about the Big 12 like it's a poverty league.
Who?
Poverty league.
Who? Name names. That's my problem. Name names.
He says,
People.
what do y'all think?
Yeah.
So I don't think Efren's wrong, okay?
Okay.
I think on this show, we've done our best to push back on that narrative a bit because we love the Big 12.
So once again, we're saying Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Take them aside. Take away
Right.
Ty's billion-dollar Hollywood face, and
Sure.
he's not so different than
That's
you
right.
and I.
That's right.
Okay.
What he's wrong about, I think, is the approach to the question.
Okay.
Because he is thinking about this like a logical college football fan, right? Who cares about nuance, looking at the middle of a conference, looking at something from soup to nuts. The broader national conversation is defined by the top of a conference, not the
agree.
meaty middle. So
or
in
the
that sense,
the competent depth, but that includes the top of the top. Yeah.
that includes the top. Absolutely. So I think in that sense, because of conference realignment, because the Big 12 is kind of headless at this point, we don't know who's taking over the mantle.
Oh, my Arizona State Sun Devils are, Ty. Come on.
Kenny
we just
Dillingham told
established
that
this.
to Pete Nakos that he thinks it could be ASU.
Why not them?
Right. But the top of the conference at present remains somewhat undefined.
Yeah.
I actually think the more interesting experiment to test this theory would be to put out a poll, and I guess we could do this if we wanted, asking whether or not just a blind taste test.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not blind, but you see where I'm going with this.
Continue.
Which conference is tougher, the Big 12 or the ACC? And I want to see how people answer that because the ACC definitely has teams with a little bit more star power. You've got Clemson and Florida State and Miami and North Carolina, even Virginia Tech.
Right.
Right. I think the highs of that conference, just in terms of name recognition, brand recognition, all those goofy buzzwords, it's probably higher in the ACC, even though I don't know necessarily that it's a tougher conference.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think with some of that star power at the very top, you would have a poll that skews in the direction of the ACC. That's my theory.
I agree.
So I think that's where the Big 12 comes up a little bit short, just in terms of the top of the conference. The other thing that I would say about the Big 12, Dan,
yeah.
4 of the 5 biggest TV markets belong to newer teams.
Yeah.
Like the biggest is in Houston, which Houston's got a good sized fan base, but they just got there. They don't have a whole lot of experience competing at the power conference level.
Mm-hmm.
TCU in Fort Worth is the next highest. Made the title game a couple years ago, but TCU is a smaller private school, constantly competing for oxygen with schools like Texas A&M for, I guess, broader recognition in the state of Texas and beyond.
Right.
The next biggest are Arizona State, new team, Colorado, new team, UCF, relatively new team.
Right.
So, again, to the recognition point, the biggest TV markets in general belong to new teams. And if I can make one final point before I kick it over to you.
Yes.
I don't know if the middle of the Big Ten is necessarily better than upper middle of the Big 12, to Efren's point. They are richer, though. They are much richer.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if we're talking of this in terms of like the broader national conversation, whether or not people want that to factor in, it is definitely still something on the periphery that people think about when they make a snap judgment on a conference.
Sure. Absolutely.
What do you think?
Okay, so it's hard to separate awareness. It's hard to separate national familiarity from this question. You'll notice, was it Efren?
Efren.
Left out USC, right? Huge program in a huge place with a huge name, brand, coach, whatever, and just very recognizable in terms of where this program has been in college football. Not recently. But we're not too old that we forget USC as a national power.
And by the way, you're kind of making my Big 12 point here as well.
Sure.
Because when you think of the Big 12, you don't necessarily think of like Arizona State Arizona.
No, Arizona,
UCF.
Arizona State are Pac-12 programs.
Right, and I think the same is true on USC's front. I still don't call me old school. I know they're technically, as is Oregon and Washington, UCLA. I know these teams are technically in the Big Ten, but
well,
snap your fingers, snap judgment. I'm not thinking USC's in the Big Ten yet. I have not reprogrammed that quickly.
USC's a little bit different to me because they actively tried to murder the conference they were in.
Fair.
So, from my vantage point, USC is a murderer, and so they're a Big Ten team. This is what they wanted college football to be. They wanted USC, Big Ten member.
We had a guy write in, by the way, every time we talk about USC's schedule, wanted me to play. Do you remember the Mr. Softy?
Sure.
We took a few years off.
I mean, they play Notre Dame and Oregon this year, right?
I know. We could start that back up, though. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Continue.
The other thing, the Big 12 just feels so much, even though it spans, Arizona to West Virginia and Orlando, there is still something highly regional, if not about like the places or the alums, but the interest in the Big 12 that, look, I've lived on the West Coast, I've lived on the East Coast, and now I live in the biggest city in the Midwest. And when you look up and down the Big 12, I can't think. This is an insane anecdotal piece of argument that I'm about to make, okay? This is Cowherdian in its nature, okay?
Great.
I don't think, and maybe somebody's listening to this and knows me and is friends with me, I don't think I know a single person that went to any of these schools that lives near me right now. But I can think, I have SEC friends. I have obviously Big Ten friends. I have former Pac-12 friends. I have ACC friends. But what's interesting to me, and I don't know if it's just a footprint thing, but there is something about the Big 12 that when you lose the recognizable heads of a conference in Texas and Oklahoma, and by the way, I think the Big 12 has done a sensational job in rebuilding and repopulating and having a high floor.
I like it. I like what they've done. And I'm not necessarily making this argument that effort is batting around. I'm not at all. I mean, people who listen know that we like the conference, but I think it's a fair point to raise because this is very much the narrative.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And you look at the teams who have played in huge national games recently in the postseason. You have TCU, of course. You have ASU, of course. And then you look at the rest of the list in terms of playoff-ish teams. Utah has kind of flirted, but they've been a Big 12 team for an hour and a half. Kansas State has had some really interesting there's no consistency at or near the top. Oklahoma State sort of showed it. They make a Big 12 championship game and fall off of it's like the Marianas Trench of college football. Is that what it's called?
Yes, in the Atlantic, yes.
Yeah. And so there is something about the consistency of inconsistency in the Big 12 where you're just like, who is this conference built on the backs of? And when you look at the ACC and you look at the interest that, Clemson has generated nationally, and it's taken a while, but Miami, of course, not necessarily within the ACC, but it's a huge brand with recognizable everything about Miami football. Say what you will. Miami's huge. And then there are the enormous schools or the big name schools, whatever you want to call it, in the Northeast. Not that they've had sustained success, but these are huge programs both in basketball and football, and the Big 12 has a ton of basketball firepower. But I don't know. There is still something about a bunch of B-plus type programs that is impressive and to be modeled after, but there has to be that bar. That's what we talked about when Nick Saban retired, that Alabama did the impossible thing in the SEC where it was people decry a lack of parity, but it is nice that we had this measuring stick of a program in Alabama. I hope for the sake of the Big 12, maybe that becomes Arizona State. It'd be very cool. They seem to be a very likable program at the moment, unless you're in Tucson, I guess. And you need that bar to measure yourself against. And the Big 12 is searching for that. It's a conference in its absolute infancy, whereas like the Big 10 and SEC and ACC are growing by adding to an existing roster. The Big 12 had to morph into something new when losing its huge brands. And so, sure, you can say the Big 12 is competitive with the Big Ten minus the bars and the SEC minus the bars. But I mean, this is why movie stars have the prettiest faces. You know, like you got to have that recognizable flash to sell tickets. Yeah. And you know, we're paying to see Sydney Sweeney, not Cheryl Sweeney. I'm down with my Cowherdian soapbox now.
Now that was a great Cowherdian argument.
Thank you.
By the way, as you were going off on that tangent,
please,
I did post to our social account a poll asking which conference do you think is tougher, Big 12 or ACC? Mm-hmm. So by this time tomorrow, we'll know the answer.
Right.
To the experiment. But if I were to venture a guess, I would say the ACC, not necessarily because I think it's that much tougher or weaker or whatever, but I just think because of the star power at the top, that is what works against the Big 12. You made the same point as well. I would expect that the ACC is going to win this, but we'll see. I don't know.
It's also
people are probably going to make jokes about this question altogether. But.
No, it's fine. And it's also, look, from a recruiting standpoint and I guess portal standpoint, but mostly recruiting, you know, over the last, 5-10 years. And then Texas Tech was a major player in the portal this year, and we'll see how that works out for them. But this is a conference that, from a pure roster standpoint, and it's changed again in the portal era, it's a conference that can't absorb injuries, that hasn't built up the kind of depth when you compare it against other conferences that, a couple of years ago, a couple of quarterbacks go down and West Virginia's winning a bunch more games than they probably should have. And good for them, right? That it's easier to win games in a conference that doesn't necessarily have NFL depth at a lot of positions. And I'm not saying the Big 12 is easy, no, but I think the bar to get to, the road to 8 wins in the Big 12 may be a little bit easier because you're not dealing with week in and week out. This team might not have an offense, but their defense is incredible. Or this team might not have a defense, but their offense is incredible. I think you're getting a lot of mediocrity at, a 3-4 position group layer that you might not be getting in the bottom of the middle of the Big Ten.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to this one from Dan.
Okay.
Every podcaster and college football media member with a mailbag has been asked a dozen times, how many years would it take Nick Saban to turn X into a contender?
Okay.
But Saban only really won big at decided blue blood programs like LSU and Alabama.
Yeah.
What is the lowest tier of a program that the best coaches in the game could turn into a top 5 team? Could they do it? Or could they do it at a top 15 program, a top 25 program? What is the lowest tier? Let's use Nick Saban as an example. Best coach of all time in college football.
Sure.
You put Nick Saban Eastern Michigan?
I don't think that exercise is stupid.
Okay. Explain.
Nick Saban would never... these guys are used to a certain lifestyle. And it's not worth it for them. The money is not worth it if the money behind the program and the prestige behind the program isn't aligned with what they're used to doing with coaching. So I think the more sensible question is what Dan is actually asking, right? That like Nick Saban going to a MAC school and winning the MAC a bunch of times, but he's never going to really be able to probably generate enough financial interest behind the scenes at the school and amongst alumni to draw in 5 stars from Florida and Georgia to play for Eastern Michigan. So realistically.
This would have been a different question 15 years ago.
Right.
All right. Because back in the day, you could build up teams kind of like you build them up in the video game, where you consistently recruit well, you consistently develop talent, you see a progression of results on the conference, on the national level. And then at some point, if you're doing it right, you hit a critical mass.
Right.
I'm oversimplifying, but it's not unlike what happened at Boise State, which I sort of just described.
Right.
In 2025, though, this is a much different answer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we did see a guy like a Frank Signetti turn around Indiana in one offseason, regardless of what you think of Indiana, they should be in the playoff. They shouldn't. Indiana went from 3-9 to 11-2 with a better coach and with help of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You can do it very quickly. It's not the same time calculation as it used to be.
And a favorable schedule.
and a favorable schedule. So, you put a bigger name coach at really any school, you will probably see something of a spike in terms of transfer interest, in terms of maybe the donor class, et cetera. But the bigger question is that donor class, to your point.
Right.
All right. Donor class and revenue on the football program, because it's going to take money now. It's going to take money to bring the talent in. It's going to take money to keep your homegrown talent. Stop them from going elsewhere. It doesn't matter if it's Nick Saban turning things around, turning you into a name brand quarterback at whatever MAC school.
Yeah.
The question is, can you keep that guy another year? Because on some level, it's like, it's great playing for Nick Saban. It's great being there. It's great having him being like the seal of approval on your future.
Right.
But unless you can afford to pay $3 million to keep the guy in town, forget it.
Right.
He's going to be playing down the road at Ohio State next year. So that's the reason why this is a much different question than I think it used to be. I don't know if I really have an answer. I guess the answer is a school that is big enough to bring in enough dollars to keep the talent in place on a recurring basis. Like maybe Memphis is the answer with their investment that they got from FedEx.
I mean, it's a good investment for the AAC. It's
Sure.
not necessarily a good investment for the highest levels of college football, but yeah.
But that's what it takes. It takes a school that is big enough to get those donor dollars year in, year out, regardless of who the coach is. Having the coach would help, but you need the money at this point in time if you're going to sustain it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just going to be a location situation that takes schools that are close to Florida, Georgia, Texas, maybe California, that, yes, at Arizona State, at Louisville, at TCU, I think those places would qualify. It's places that are much more in the like 17 to 30 range.
Okay.
And are geographically advantageous. I think Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Dabo, take your pick. The best of the best coaches could find ways to win with that kind of proximity to talent and that kind of proximity to money. I don't know what the money scene is like. I know it's good at Louisville, it seems. TCU, not sure. Like Syracuse would just be more difficult. Like the job Nick Saban would have in trying to convince players from the South, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, wherever, to come to Syracuse over going to Georgia and playing for Kirby Smart, going to Texas and playing for Steve Sarkisian. It's a lot. He would get some, but not on the same level. It would just be a different kind of argument that there are just going to be players who are like, I want to play near family. I want to play somewhere warm. I want to play in a southern college town. And Syracuse is just going to check fewer boxes for those types of prospects. All of these coaches, by the way, would be the first to tell you that they're nothing special without players. And there's only so much you can do with a capped talent level. And you are just going to have that capped level at a lot of places in that like 22 to 45 zone. You can get great coaching. You can develop players super well. But in terms of depth, in terms of star power, the usual suspects seem like they're always going to draw more. And so it's a nice symbiotic relationship that like players make the coach, coach make the players, and everybody thinks the best of everybody. And I couldn't see Kirby Smart, achieving national glory at Iowa State consistently.
Saban at Tulane would be, I think, as far down as I would go. A school like a Tulane. But I think it would have to be the upper crust of the non-Power Five.
Mm-hmm.
A place that has a serious investment in football, has had some recent success to build upon, already has talent.
Right.
Starting from square one, you're not going to put him at Kent State.
No,
you're going to be better if you put him at Kent State because he's a better coach. But in terms of building something longer term, turning this into any kind of juggernaut,
it's actually more fascinating in basketball when you just need, 2 or 3 incredible dudes.
Basketball's a different
like
calculation.
What Rick Pitino has done, because we actually see it in basketball on a different level. Like John Calipari at Memphis. Memphis, obviously, historical program, has had star power there, but it's not what Kentucky is, right? It's he turned UMass into a power.
Yeah.
And so the basketball thing, the coaches have more of an opportunity because you got to convince 2 kids. And then others will follow those 2 kids pretty quickly. And so that's the fascinating thing when you see who was the Michigan coach forever, who went to San Diego State? Steve Fisher, right?
Steve Fisher.
That we actually do see it in basketball, and that's when it becomes super fascinating. But no, football-wise, I just think it's so much more difficult, especially now with how much players can move around. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like Nick Saban would find really good and develop really good DBs and find really good DB coaches, if he were coaching in the MAC, if he were coaching in the Big 12, in the Big 10, wherever. But the high level roster that goes too deep everywhere, as much as that is difficult now, I just think you're asking so much of one human to completely transform a place that's not built to be transformed.
This question from Jacob is not I'm botching my words here.
You're good.
It's not addressed solely to you, but it might as well be.
Okay.
Can you compare 2025 college football teams to early 2000s pop punk bands?
Oh, I deleted this.
I do not believe we've ever gotten this question before.
I deleted it. I don't compare anymore. Do you have any thoughts? I'm retired from comparisons. I'm sorry. I put you on I'm a bad teammate right now saying that.
It's okay.
But,
no, it's fine. It's fine. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong with these comparisons.
Okay.
I have Michigan down as Green Day.
Michigan as Green Day? That's not early 2000s. They hit Dookie was like 94.
I just jotted down that they have some old school credibility. It's Michigan.
Uh-huh.
They had their moment again recently. A lot of people think they peaked in the 90s. But
won a
Michigan
national
is Green Day.
championship like 3 hours ago.
I said they had their moment recently.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the other one I jotted down was Penn State as Jimmy Eat World, because they're solid, they're consistent, they have occasional moments of brilliance, but they have never quite been the headliner.
Okay. Yeah. I would be more likely to look at Fall Out Boy songs and compare them to like 2024 seasons, like song names.
Yeah.
Dead on Arrival, Grand Theft Autumn, whatever. Old Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
And compare them to seasons, or like team seasons from last season, than band reputation, because it's just so highly subjective. And
sure.
College football, there's you objectively went 10-2. You objectively won 3 straight national championships, or appeared in 3 straight national championships. Where I think I would go song title more than that. Fall Out Boy. Like, what program is, like, early 2000s or all of the Fall Out Boy oeuvre? What's the question exactly?
He says, can you compare 2025 college football teams to early 2000s pop punk bands?
Well, Michigan isn't peaked in, like, their 2025 team is relying on a young lead singer? Was there anybody that was especially young singing for a pop punk group in like 2002, the starting line, and Kenny?
There was that dude from The Calling. They had one big song, and he was like 17 years old.
That guy was just doing an Eddie Vedder impression. Here,
okay.
Yeah. Fall Out Boy has withstood the test of time. Midwest.
Yep.
High energy.
Yep.
A lot of hair decisions.
Yeah, there were.
Associated with Ashley Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
So who played in that Orange Bowl that Ashley Simpson sang in?
Was that Penn State?
Was it?
It might have been Penn State. Or she sang the halftime show?
Yeah. And she had the really bad hiccup on national TV on SNL.
Yeah.
So I guess Fall Out Boy is associated with both of those things.
It was the 2005 Orange Bowl.
Okay, who played in the 2005 Orange Bowl?
2005 Orange Bowl. I'm looking at it right here. Oh my gosh. I'm looking at this clip right now. 2005 Orange Bowl. Yeah, that was USC against Oklahoma. That was the 2005 BCS National Championship game.
I would say Ohio State. If you're going to force me to do Fall Out Boy, I would say Ohio State. That Midwest, been around for a while, amongst an elite tier with their peers. Fall Out Boy, selling out arenas and stuff like that. Like they have a huge national, if not international, following.
It's funny you say that, because Jacob, the second part of Jacob's comment here, is, for example, I feel like Ohio State is Fallout Boy. Big name, some good hits, has a lot of haters.
Yeah, I think it's pretty reasonable. The Midwestern thing rings true, obviously.
Okay. Well, since he deleted it, we can move on to the next question.
We can move on.
Thank you for your question, Jacob. Xavier writes in, how many coaches do you think can get fired or retire? Just looked, and I can see Auburn, LSU, FSU, Florida, USC, Iowa, Kentucky, Oklahoma, NC State, Pitt, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech.
I mean, this answer is easier to say, like, who do you think is in a pretty good spot?
I could see all of these teams. He also has Maryland, Wisconsin, Arkansas, all of these teams making moves either due to firings or retirements. And I'm wondering if maybe we'll see some coaches stay on for that reason. Okay. So he's obviously focused on the power conference coaches.
Mm-hmm.
He did list a lot of schools there. Many of them have complex situations that are, I think, worth following. Only a fraction of those places are probably willing to pay crazy buyout money. So like USC and Lincoln Riley, we had Ryan Abraham on a couple months ago. Lincoln Riley's not going anywhere. They're not paying that buyout. I think there is a trend right now to that point of rather than shelling out dead buyout money, reinvesting it into talent acquisition and seeing where the program can go. Florida sort of did something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Of the programs he listed, the ones that I would say I'm watching the closest or most interested in, Mark Stoops is getting progressively more grumpy at Kentucky.
Sure.
Sometimes that could be a precursor to a retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma State, the writings of the wall, we talked that one through. Oklahoma, we like what Brent Venables is doing, but going to need to start seeing some results sooner than later, especially with what they're doing now. Wisconsin and Luke Fickell, we talked about that one. It has not been off to a great start. Virginia Tech was underwhelming last year for a multitude of reasons, some of which are on the coach. Iowa, I think, is going to have another good year, but we know that Kirk Ferentz is going to be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida State had a horrible year, made a big move to go out and get Gus to come in and run the offense. 2 new coordinators now in total. Should be better if only because they can't get much worse. But if Florida State is not more reliably in that playoff conversation, I think starting this year,
we're
going to have to start having a Mike Norvell conversation. So those are just the schools that he listed.
Oh, I think the Mike Norvell conversation has begun.
Oh, it's definitely begun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be, generous here with my assessment, but
Fair.
Florida State should be in that CFP conversation nearly every year. Full stop.
I think with the demands placed on coaches now, the list is probably far longer of coaches who are just like, yeah, I'm done with this. I've made enough money and I'm good. I don't want to recruit my own roster every hour of every day. I think there's more. I think the teams that Xavier listed are all reasonable because of expectations, because of how teams have gone into the portal or how teams are hoping to bounce back from last season. They're all reasonable here, but I just think the list is more vast. Like the list is more vast of programs, not necessarily who are excited to pay money to a coach to not coach, but if you take away the schools that just hired somebody or they're good vibes early on in a coach's tenure somewhere, and you just take any school that has had a coach that has been there for 4 or 5 years, you're not going to be fully surprised if Kirby Smart's like, I'm good. If Dabo Swinney's like, I'm good.
Right. I see, but you're talking to the retirement angle, and I think that's...
Well, it's in the question, right?
It's in the question. It's absolutely valid.
Yeah.
Totally. What I don't know, though, with this new era of money, and especially with revenue sharing, we actually have a question about revenue sharing a little bit later that we'll get to. I don't know the willingness of some of these programs to pay that buyout money.
I agree.
And that is something we're just going to have to chart. We're going to have to see which programs are really desperate to get rid of whoever is running the thing and start anew versus who's just going to hang tight and see if anything materializes, maybe reinvest the way I described.
Right. No,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I think there are very few programs that have had a coach for a while that the coach does not go through spells of, why am I even doing this? And from the top on down, Like, I would bet Steve Sarkisian has had low moments at Texas, that Dan Lanning has had low moments at Oregon, that take your pick of the gilded class of coaches, that they're dealing with issues that make them question why they are coaching major college football in 2025. Now, though the issues likely don't outweigh the positive aspects, and these are places that you can throw money at problems in a way that you can't at a lot of places. But the pain of the job, I'm sure, rears its ugly head for every single one of these. For Kenny Dillingham, who's got it better than Kenny Dillingham right now, coming off of a Big 12 title and being seen as like a good guy, intense guy, doing stuff that is a blueprint for other new coaches, younger new coaches. But even he is, frustrated by a lot of realities, I'm sure. So I think the list is always longer than you think it is. Okay. And these coaches are talented at figuring out how to convince people to throw money at problems.
Let's go to David. As a Big Ten fan in my 6th decade of life.
Nice. In his 50s.
I am increasingly struggling with how to handle games that interest me that are on in the very late TV window.
Okay. We don't know where David lives, do we?
We do not know where he lives. No.
Okay.
I can stay up, but it wrecks me the next day. He says, as a parenthetical, yes, I am very washed.
Okay.
Especially if the game is exciting, since I, too, am wound up after the game, and I am unable to fall asleep as soon as the head hits the pillow.
Okay, let's assume David lives in the Big Ten footprint, in the Central Time Zone. Okay, continue.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I've tried to go to sleep at halftime, but then I toss and turn all night with suspense, not wanting to wake up until morning to see what happened. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with the suspense killing me, I wake up at like 2 or 3 a.m. and I check the score. But of course, I also have to see the drive chart and everything, and then good luck trying to fall back asleep for like 2 more hours.
Right.
They really should have considered the old folks when scheduling. Any advice or thoughts? Don't laugh. This will be you someday. Buddy, it already is us. We're just at this point now where we have to gut it out so that we can do the live streams at midnight Eastern time after a day's worth of games. So we are simpatico, David. I think the best answer is probably to move to Hawaii if that's within your budget.
Okay, that's not a great answer, but it's an answer.
Who was the NBA guy who did that for ESPN? Was it Chad Ford? Is that?
That sounds right. That he lives. Was that specifically for time zone purposes?
I don't know. I think he was a professor or something.
There's a basketball writer for The Athletic, Sam Vecini. He lives in Australia. I don't know how that works for him and covering the NBA, if that's advantageous or like if games start at 9 a.m. and he's like, this is great.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a great answer, but what's your solution? What's your advice here for David?
Well, I think the actual problem here is you got to fall asleep in like a harder rock, right? Like you have to be asleep so thoroughly that you don't wake up in the middle of the night. You will wet your bed. You will wet your bed because you got to get up sometimes. How opposed to you are edibles? You know,
okay.
Like if you can find that sort of blend that just sort of keeps you locked into your sleep pattern so that you're not waking up.
You're saying seek the assistance of something that can either help knock you out,
right,
or keep you knocked out so that the college football distractions aren't quite as distracting.
I would figure out maybe how to negotiate a power nap window the next morning if you have to stay up, if that's an unavoidable thing.
See, this is where I thought you were going with it, because that's been our approach to staying awake later into the night.
But he doesn't have an issue staying awake. He's saying it wrecks him the next morning.
Well, yeah, but...
So you're still saying stay up late, but he's still going to be wrecked.
But gutting out these night games now, as we have for the last 2 years, the best advice you gave me was probably to do the power nap around 5 p.m.
Right, but that prepares you for to be awake for the night window. It doesn't help you the next morning.
This is true. I am.
So what I'm saying is, I don't know if David has kids and responsibilities on Sunday mornings, that he has, active plans every Sunday morning. What I'm saying is, if you do have plans, figure out a way with your significant other to say, at 10:30 a.m., I'm going to need 25 minutes to close my eyes. because you can't go past 25 minutes really if you want to do a power nap. You chug a little coffee and you close your eyes for 25 minutes. That can help you the next day if you are wrecked from staying up until, or you wake up in the middle of the night.
That's right.
You can put your phone in another room so you can't check scores if you happen to wake up.
Right. And this is what therapists will tell you to do.
Yes.
If you have trouble sleeping at night, if you are constantly on the phone, if you're doom scrolling, whatever,
Right.
they will tell you, put the phone in another room. There are some settings on the phone that can prevent you, I guess, from using your own device.
Right.
They tend to not work because you're the one who sets it up. You know how to get around it. But
what I'm saying is,
that's not a bad idea. I like the idea.
there are
Like where
those
your head's
apps though, right? There's those apps that they're just like, don't let me on my phone between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
at. Yes.
Okay. So I think maybe that's the move.
Okay.
Now, if in so much suspense, you can just turn on the TV, right? You can. There are ways around not checking your phone, but at least turning on your TV, you feel like even more of a degenerate that you're fully dedicating yourself to an entertainment sidebar in the middle of the night from 2 to 3:18 a.m. Whereas the ease of the phone being taken away, I feel like is at least a step. It's at least if you have a significant other, have them hide the phone.
Oh, hide the phone.
Hide
Yeah.
the phone from
An
you.
Easter egg hunt at 3:30 a.m. to see what the box score was between Texas Tech and, whoever.
Yeah.
I will.
How about this, Ty?
Go ahead.
Give yourself a reward system for not staying up late and checking the scores on your phone, right? Treat yourself Sunday morning. You made it through. Now you're going to scrub through at 6 a.m. while you're drinking coffee, 7 a.m. while you're drinking coffee. Reward yourself and go get a breakfast burrito. You
I'll
only
tell
get
you
the
what-
breakfast burrito if you pass the test.
What does not work and has never worked is the
Yeah.
tape delay thing.
Right.
I have yet to hear from, we've been doing this show since 08.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to hear from our verballerhood anyone, truly anyone who has ever been able to pull that move off.
Right.
Because back in the day when it was like a VCR, you had to rewind it.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the scores. Now, if you're using any of the streaming apps out there, you
Right.
still have to rewind it. I've never had success with starting right at the moment where it's supposed to record and then just watching it without getting any of those tells.
Right.
I've always had to rewind it, or maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know, but that doesn't work. I don't have that kind of patience. I don't have that kind of willpower. So yeah, maybe use the apps to try and shield yourself from the results. I don't know, David. Let us know if you come up with a better solution.
I like my drugs idea.
I
Leave
mean,
it
listen,
in the hand of Big Pharma.
let's go out to Tyler here.
Yeah.
As revenue sharing for players kicks off shortly, do you have any creative ideas for how schools can earn more revenue to offset the increased expenditures?
Yeah.
The best idea Penn State could come up with was to make the minimum price for parking at any game this year $105.
Yeah.
Parenthetically, he says, yes, seriously, $105 to park in a grass field when FIU comes to town.
Right.
Needless to say, I'm a little bit frustrated. I would love to have some fun with this. How are we going to earn more sweet, sweet cash to keep up the program and make sure it stays a well-oiled machine? Okay.
Yeah.
I have 4 creative ideas here
Okay.
that I came up with.
Are any of them renting chairs?
No.
Okay. Damn.
I have a couple options. I want you
Okay.
to tell me what you think.
All right.
As you know, we are noted entrepreneurs here. We do a Shark Tank knockoff.
I
on
have
the
a
prop.
business minor, everybody.
Option 1, a premium bathroom pass.
Oh man, that's kind of evil. Okay.
Premium pass.
Okay.
They do something like this at Disney World. You can jump to the front of the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speed pass. Is that what it's called? Something
Yeah.
like that. $50. $50 gives you access to a no-line restroom.
Okay.
Judging from your response, you don't like it. I'll move on.
I'm okay with it. No, I didn't know if you had more to say about it.
No, that was it.
$50 gets you a pass to a no-line restroom.
Correct.
All right. So you're looking for the richer fans to foot
Yes.
this bill.
We are basically, all of my ideas are scamming the people who go to the game.
Okay, that's so smart, Ty. What a good thing for college football. Scam people going to games.
Option 2.
Yeah.
I call this workable Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Workable Wi-Fi. So you go up like in a plane and they charge you for the Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a scam, but also when you want it, you really want it.
Yeah.
Everybody, you look in the stands. I'm not suggesting that we want more people on their phones during games, but let's just be real with where we're at in 2025. Everyone's on their phone anyway.
Right.
Let's charge for Wi-Fi in the stadiums. Workable Wi-Fi in the stadiums.
Yeah.
Because right now, none of them work.
Yeah.
Pay $25, just like you would in an airplane. You get access to actually functional Wi-Fi.
Yep. That's good. I like that.
Not bad, right?
I like that. Next.
We're stepping up here.
Yeah.
Rentable AR headsets.
Augmented reality headsets.
$100. $100.
And what is the augmentation to college football that you're getting at a game?
It's not unlike those little radios that you used to be able to rent where you could hear the play-by-play guy.
Right.
But with an AR headset, you get the first down line.
Mm-hmm.
You get all the relevant stats.
Mm-hmm.
You get instant replay if you want that. Think of all the things they could pack in to enhance the experience. It'd just be like watching on TV, really. But you would get the benefit of some real-time updates as you are watching in the stands.
Right. Okay.
$100.
$100.
I don't know how you prevent those from being stolen, but, somebody can come up with
That's
that.
okay. I'm listening.
Just an idea guy, Dan. That's what I
hear you. I hear you.
And here is my big one, okay?
I'm ready. Sitting down.
I'm calling this DoorDash for concessions, okay?
Okay.
You charge a small fee on top of your concession orders
Mm-hmm.
so that they can be delivered directly to your seat.
Yeah.
Now, my idea for this is using delivery drones. I don't know the legality of this.
Drones hovering over a stadium dropping pad thai?
They're not dropping pad thai.
Okay.
They're lowering down
Yeah.
some sort of order from the concession stands.
Yeah.
All right. So you're not ordering out Burger King, but if Burger King is in the stadium and you want to have it delivered to your seat,
Mm-hmm.
we would program these delivery drones so that it only happens during commercial breaks. We don't want them buzzing around while the action is actually unfolding.
Right.
Maybe you could have them launch from a spot on the roof or in the parking lot. You have a couple hundred of them. Each of them can handle 2 orders a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Got an app on the phone, provided you've got workable Wi-Fi. Maybe that's why you get the subscription.
Yep.
And then boom, instead of having to get up and stand in the line and deal with that entire circus, you just have this thing come buzzing on down from the sky, lowers your nacho order down,
Yeah.
and then buzzes off before you know it, the game's back on. You don't even have to leave your seat.
Right.
Just charge a small fee on top of whatever it would cost you otherwise. Now,
Right.
concessions are already expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that this is economical, but if we're looking for ways to try and drum up a little bit more revenue, fill the coffers because you got to pay the players or you want to pay the players.
Right.
To Tyler's point, 105 to park, that's pretty steep. That's going to keep people out.
Okay.
But once we get people in, that's when we've got a captive audience.
Yeah.
And that's why we do DoorDash for concessions.
Okay. Fair enough. I appreciate that.
This is all I have.
The problem is, I think a lot of people are tailgating, and they're coming into the game pretty full.
Right.
Like the selling point of college football, I think the hot dog and nacho quality and demand, I don't think it's the huge selling point of going to a game, right? It's the environment, it's being with your friends, it's the ability to tailgate beforehand, it's the traditions. Like, improving concessions is worthwhile. I just don't know if people are freaking out about a revolutionary concession system when...
Listen, people are drunk before they come into the stadium. That
I hear
doesn't
ya.
stop them from buying more beer.
Yeah.
And maybe the reason that people aren't buying more concessions is because they don't want to deal with the crowds and the line
Right.
and the inconvenience of that.
Yeah.
So I am offering to America, to ADs out there, to university presidents, maybe lawyers. I don't know who's involved in this process, but this is how we drum up interest in concessions. And maybe this gives stadiums a little bit more of a chance to bring in different vendors,
Sure.
to offer more different types of concessions that people would
But
wanna
that's
pay
all
for.
like taking care of an edge rusher for the season, right? Like, we made 850 grand. Like, great. That's going to Mateo Uyangalele.
I'm just saying, he asked
I
the
hear ya.
question. I'm trying to be creative here. I haven't heard anything from you.
Okay. Who are, on an individual basis, who are the people who are able to generate the most on-site income relative to the work they actually do? I wrote down here, cart girls. Now, is that a problematic answer? Of course it is.
Sure.
Yes, of course. But extrapolate that over a whole stadium? Now we got 2 edge rushers. Okay. Next item. Week 4 in Riyadh. Now, perhaps even more problematic.
You want more international games.
I'm just saying, in terms of how quickly you can make money,
Live college football.
zero conscience, you live college football. I mean, Colorado already like had a rogue staffer explore that, right?
Yes.
Somewhere
Yes.
looking for Middle Eastern money. Okay.
Correct.
That's not a great answer. Here's an interesting thing, and I don't actually know how interesting it is, but this is where my wheels were turning. What if you canceled everybody's season tickets or the best season tickets in a stadium and reopened them up in like a bid system?
I mean, if the state of the game right now,
Yeah.
we just did a whole episode on this.
I
If
know.
the state of the game right now is potentially alienating the biggest fans of the game, what do you think that would do?
Well, this is the richest fans, not the biggest fans, richest fans.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know exactly how this would work, but I'm saying like free market the best tickets and see where it gets you. Maybe it's a terrible idea. I don't know. I don't know what you do. Like at this point, like truly, if there are any entities out there that I feel the least for in terms of sympathy, major college football programs trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the Big Ten and SEC, like Penn State jacking up, what do you say, parking prices here? $100 to park. I just don't feel bad for Penn State. Like, I don't think we need to put our extremely limited brain power towards figuring out these schools with these enormous endowments. Obviously, they're earmarked for specific programs and situations. But, like, I don't know, cry me a river. Like, I don't care if Penn State doesn't have enough money to pay the next, DDS. It doesn't matter to me. Like, I just care about the football. And so if these schools are all going to cry poor and are going to cut back the number of people who are photoshopping, happy birthday messages to high school sophomores, so be it. That's okay. They're gonna get creative with it. They're going to charge more for everything. They're going to pass along, whatever, people parking their car. They're not going to do enough to improve the in-game environment, despite all of your pleas to drop pad thai drones, which I don't think is a bad idea. I would love to subscribe to a pad thai drone.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm down with that.
I don't feel bad. I feel bad for smaller schools trying to figure it out and how to compete. But like Penn State jacking up parking prices, in what universe is that going to make anybody want to go to these games?
That's my point.
Right.
That's my point. I am focusing on the in-stadium experience,
Right.
and not putting up the barrier to get in the stadium that I think 105 does when it comes to parking.
But what is better Wi-Fi truly going to do? Like, I'm on the fence about going to Penn State Northwestern, but I'm getting
Excuse me.
Yeah.
There are still gigantic student sections in all of these stadiums.
Right.
You don't think that there would be something of an appeal for that audience?
Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Do you know how much big screen TVs cost now? Every
I'm
student
saying
has
that
one. It's
you got-
$350. You can sit at home. You can ingest
You got
however many
20,000
narcotics
students.
you want.
They're all on their phones.
They are, but they can be on their phones at home too.
But they're not. They're at the games. They're on their phones.
Some are. I mean,
I'm just saying.
Look at what Nick Saban complained about at the end of his career, and people leaving and the student section not filling
I know.
up.
Listen, I know. I'm not necessary for as much as I'm on my phone normally. If I'm at a game, I'm not really on the phone. I'm watching the game, but I'm also not necessarily who this is targeted towards.
So now,
and I probably still would pay it to get better Wi-Fi just in case.
So now we circle back to cart girls. 3 per section, 5 per section, all with bodyguards. Safety is paramount here.
We need the bodyguards. Yeah, unfortunately.
But I don't know, man. Those add up. Those tips add up. I have no clue how these places who are making tens upon millions of dollars from TV arrangements that they're all in bed with and didn't pay money to players forever and ever and ever. I just think it's a reckoning, Tighten up the beehole and deal with it.
Why don't we go out on this note then?
Yeah.
A non-college football note from Gary. I am in no way qualified to answer this question.
Okay.
He wants tips from Dan for flying to California from New Jersey with a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. He said, me and my wife, 2 kids, and in-laws. We're all going to Disneyland, Universal, a Dodgers game, a Padres game, the San Diego Zoo, doing the whole thing out there.
So it's extended family doing touristy things in Southern California with a 6-year-old and 2-year-old.
He's looking for travel tips.
Yeah. I mean, every parent has their own philosophy. My philosophy is anything goes at 35,000 feet. So Pixar movies, if the kid's into sports, you can download a bunch of stuff off of YouTube. You always want to have more snacks and water availability than you need, right? Comfort is huge. But there's only so much. Like a 2-year-old's tough on a plane. Like 18 months until 3 is generally, in my experience, extended iPad age. Again, anything goes. So lots of snacks, lots of entertainment. Maybe stickers are really good on a plane, like the easily stickers. So like the sort of more like the clear stickers that like decal type stickers that easily come off of things.
What are we doing with those?
Oh, you put them on the window, the back of seats and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought you were putting them over the child's mouth. I'm like, what are we going with this?
No, not tape.
Not doing that. Okay.
Decals, stuff like that. That can take you for a while. In terms of going to theme parks like the zoo and SeaWorld and Disneyland and stuff, get the double stroller. The kid's not going to be happy on his or her feet for an extended period of time. You got to go double stroller there. Again, it's snacks. It's recognizing the heat outside and making sure you're in the shade. It's all about comfort, and it's dealing with in-laws and extended family on those things. You have to set expectations early. Like, guys, we're not hitting every ride. This is our plan. And leave earlier than you think because kids expire and everybody's tired. Oh, you've never heard that turn of phrase?
No, I've heard it used when we're referencing death, not necessarily children getting tired.
There is just a certain amount of energy, and like they're going to be just jacked out of their minds with excitement about things, right? They're going to be seeing killer whales, who should never be in captivity, by the way. Go see Blackfish. And you're going to be waiting in lines at Disney. Like, they're just going to be antsy, and just the dopamine hits are going to be through the roof. And so if they're normally like that at like 5:30, 6 p.m., like they start to expire, it's going to be 4:15, right? Expire. I use that word every day. So leave yourself cushions, right? Have more food on hand than you think, more granola bars, more water bottles, more cups of grapes, more whatever. Try your best, in my opinion, to not, fully eliminate, but do a good job with the sugar, because that becomes, a fuel to be all over the place for some kids. So you fill their bellies, right? If it's just garbage, then they're wild cards, man, especially out in the wild. Like going to a new place in a new state, and they're seeing Dopey and they're seeing a dolphin jumping, and like, you just got to manage expectations with the family. Take breaks. and do your best. Do your best. Realize that especially the 2-year-old is not going to remember any of it. So live in the moment with the 2-year-old, and try to see the world through their eyes, and realize that this isn't about you. But honestly, Ty, if we're being real, if I can pull everybody into my truth corner over here,
sure.
Disney kind of sucks.
I've never been to either.
And I know people love it, and I grew up loving it, and I went even as a grown-up, like when I was in my 20s, and I would go with buddies who worked for ESPN or ABC and would get free park passes and stuff. It was pretty fun. I went with kids last month or 2 months ago, and the ratio of enjoyment to just sitting in a line, and it's so crowded. I've never been to Disney World, so I can't speak to that, but Disneyland specifically, it's not great. And like, if your kid doesn't actually have a reference point, like hasn't seen every Disney movie, it's not mandatory. You can live an awesome life without like sitting in Disney lines. And you don't want them to be a pariah and all their friends have been to Disney and they've never been to Disney. But if they don't even have the reference point that they haven't seen the Seven Dwarfs and Beauty and the Beast and Toy Story and all, everything in Star Wars, the Star Wars land, by the way, they did an awesome job with it. It looks really cool. My kids didn't care about Star Wars, so we didn't do any of that stuff, but we walked through the new Star Wars land or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's so crazy expensive, and you're waiting in lines, and it's packed, and it's hot. Like, Disneyland's cool, but also, you just don't. It's not mandatory. Is
well,
the point
good. Gary is now canceling his trip.
Good. I don't know. Go to the beach.
His
throw
kids
around a
will
football.
be terribly disappointed. I've never been to Disney or Disney World.
I'm not a zoo guy, but I understand the appeal of taking kids to a zoo.
San Diego Zoo is pretty cool.
San Diego Zoo is great, and there's like the wildlife the wildlife parks where animals are more out in the open, like giraffes are running up. Is it giraffes or
giraffes?
Can we do giraffes on this show? If it's stabs and halves,
It would have to be giraffes.
It would have to be giraffes. So if a herd of, is it a herd of?
I'm just going to let you talk, man.
If it's a giraffe herd.
If you want to invent animal terms, go for it.
I'm standing with giraffes. I understand why it's appealing for kids. You pique curiosity. You see different species that you'd never be able to see. I'm not a zoo guy now. I'm not a marine park guy. But I understand the appeal for kids, that you're opening their eyes to, a broader world. So that's cool.
Kids love giraffes.
But I'd go broader world rather than small world. How about that, Ty? Because it's a small world after all.
Wow. Put a bow on the whole thing. All right. Thank you to Gary for that wonderful question. Thank you to Tyler and
Stay
David.
away from Hollywood, by the way. If you're going out to LA, don't do the Walk of Fame. Don't do the whatever it's called, Grauman's Chinese Theater. Hollywood's terrible. There are great parts of LA. There are great parts of Southern California. Hollywood specifically. It's like Times Square. Just don't do it. Don't go for a hike. Go for Santa Monica. Go for anywhere. Go for Carlsbad. Go to Griffith Park, the LA Zoo. Go to a Dodger game. There's a ton to do that's super fun. Stay away from Hollywood. It's terrible.
All right. There you
That's
go.
it.
Wow.
Okay.
Coming in hot here. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Go to Amoeba Records.
Amoeba Records. Sounds beautiful. Thank you to everybody who chimed in. We have a bunch more questions that we did not get to. We're going to save up some of these, and we'll include those as part of our upcoming bonus episode. So if you didn't hear your question today, we got about 24 of them maybe. We'll try to go rapid fire through them on the bonus episode a little bit later on this week.
Yeah.
Next couple episodes, we're going to be talking Florida
Mm-hmm.
with our good friend Gator Dave. He's going to stop by a little bit later on this week. We'll have that. We've also got a conversation, I think, coming up. We want to talk about this game draft that we read about on The Athletic. Seems like a ton of fun. So we're going to work up something.
That's TV network drafting games, to be more specific. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Scott Docterman wrote an article about that. So we want to talk about that process and try to understand that a little bit more, since you and I both found it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be ramping things up here. Still 2 episodes a week, but getting a little bit closer to the 2025 season. Once we start talking July, Dan, then we start talking previews.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there has suggestions for what we can do to improve the previews to make it more valuable for you, the trusted verbaler. We'd love to hear that. Hit us up on social media, solidverbal@gmail.com. Or, of course, you can go to verbalers.com if you want more of the bonus stuff and to support more directly the stuff that Dan and I are doing.
Correct.
Why don't we leave it there? Big thanks again to everybody who chimed in. Happy June to you and yours. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrandt. Talk to you all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.